All right, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. All right. I've been meaning to, basically do this, as I titled it a new series. Okay, and Lord's will, through the Spirit, I could go into it, and Lord willing, to be edifying to you brothers. Now I did a video, okay, maybe yesterday or a day before, all right, going into studying, all right, and doing research and understanding, the background information, which it basically it allows the scriptures to make more sense. It brings more clarity, so on and so forth. Okay, and so today, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into Daniel 11, all right, but Lord's will, I could go verse by verse. Okay, and each video will be a verse, because these verses, they seem short, when you read it, 11 and 1, 11 and 2, 11 and 3, but there's a whole lot of information, all right, and background information in there, okay, that you need to know. All right, it's a whole lot of history. Now, Positive Heart put up a video. He did it recently, where you had some dude commenting, talking about the king of the South and the king of the North, and the king of the South being America and all this extra stuff, which is incorrect. All right, Daniel 11 is dealing with mainly dealing with the Syrian wars, okay, that took place already during the time of the Greeks. Okay, so Daniel 11 and 1, all right, it says here, I'm gonna just go right into it. And I don't have my computer on me right now, so I'll give you the background info off the top. All right, but as I list these names and so on and so forth, you can write them down, and you can go type it in and do your own research and get some more information on it. All right, but it says here, Daniel 11 and 1. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. All right, and when you read down in verse 2, it tells you, and now I will show thee the truth. All right, because how did Daniel get these revelations? There were angels that were sent, to him, all right, to come and reveal these things to him. All right, so like the angel told him, I will show thee the truth. So everything that this was what was revealed, all right, onto Daniel. Right, now, dealing with verse 1, it says, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede. Now we got to deal with Darius the Mede. Who is Darius the Mede? All right, now in Daniel the 5th chapter, when you read in Daniel the 5th chapter, that goes into Belshazzar, all right, which, when you get to the end of Daniel 5, it talks about the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right, basically, they went down, all right, and then it says, and it tells you, as a matter of fact, since I'm quoting it, I'm just gonna get to it now. That if you're new, all right, relatively new, or you don't really go into the history like that, it might sound a little. The names might sound foreign to you, but as you research and you look into it, it'll become common. So Daniel 5 and uh 30 says, in that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. That's about 62 years old, right? Now, it says here, Darius the Median took the kingdom. When you look into the word took, in the Hebrew, I believe it's quabal, which it says to receive. All right, to receive. Because at this time, the king of the Persians at this time, all right, was Cyrus. All right, Cyrus the Great. Now, as you read in Daniel 11, when we get to the second verse, we'll go into the different kings it talks about. It talks about four kings and so on and so forth. All right, and who they are, because when you read, when you of course you're gonna know the names, but it's hard to remember it if you just know the names and you just regurgitate it off the top. But if you know a little bit about who these individuals are, it makes it easier to remember and know, okay, this person came after this person, and I know how, because this is what happened, this were the circumstances under which this individual did that, so on and so forth. And as you're reading this, it's like, for those who've watched Game of Thrones, it's like that. As you're watching this person conspires, and he's part of the king's court, but he gets executed, and he tries to kill the king, and this, and then that's how you got to visualize it, because this is how these things actually happen. you know so Darius the Mede, in historically, all right, when you go into history, secular history, they identify him as Astyages, all right, which was a median. Okay, now this is also relating to Daniel 7, because in Daniel the 7th chapter, the first beast that Daniel talks about is a lion with eagle's wings. All right, basically a griffin. All right, and that was the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire, because at that area of Mesopotamia, you had Babylon, which was south, and then you had Assyria, which was north. And you know, going thousands of years prior, it was the Akkadians and the Sumerians, but then now it became the Assyrians and the Babylonians, and they will constantly go back and forth. All right, you had something like called the Old Assyrian Empire, the Middle Assyrian Empire, and the Neo Assyrian Empire, which is new. And in between those empires, it would be a back and forth, and whoever basically took over the other would have authority or dominion of that whole region. So at the time, it was the Assyrians, who had that authority over that whole region. Okay, and it wasn't until their fall, all right, that Babylon really got to come up, from under them. That's why it talks about the bear standing up, and the wings. All right, Daniel says, "I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked," and that was the fall of the Assyrians. That rule, all right, of them on the Babylonians basically was done. And when you go into the history, this man Astyages, or Darius the Mede, okay, it was his father, all right, take note of that, it was his father who was also a Median, Cyaxares, all right. It was his father Cyaxares, along with Nabopolassar, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, who basically formed an alliance, all right, and took down the Assyrian Empire, okay, and that's what caused the fall of the Assyrian Empire, okay. Now, at the time of the Babylonian Empire, the Medes were also there ruling, but they weren't like those empires that were going back and forth, because remember, they had an alliance to take down the Assyrians. So during the time of the Babylonian Empire, Nebuchadnezzar, all the way on down, the Medes were also there. Okay, they were also there. All right, it wasn't until the Lord raised up Cyrus, who was a Persian, come up into power, and then he took down, all right, the Medes. He took down the Median kingdom, okay, and then assimilated it, basically, because when the Medes were the Medes and the Persians are two different nations, right? That's why it's called the Medo-Persian Empire. They're two different nations. You have the Medes, which are Japheth, they go back to Madai, and then you have the Persians, which are Elam, which come from Shem. So these are two different nations. However, living in the same area, when the Medes are in rulership, they're ruling over both Medes and Persians. And when the Persians are in rulership, they're ruling over both Persians and Medes. All right. So when the Lord raised up Cyrus, all right, which was the king of the Persians, or the king of the Achaemenid Empire, he was basically king over both the Medes and the Persians. All right. And when the Lord raised him up, so at this time when the Lord raises up Cyrus, okay, the Babylonian Empire is still there. Okay, it's still there. I believe they said Cyrus came into power around 550 BC. So the Babylonian Empire is still there, because it didn't fall until 539. It's still there. And then the Median Empire is also there. But here's the thing. When you read into the history, the reason this man, Darius the Mede, or Astyages, is important, because he was actually the grandfather of Cyrus the Great. Okay. Now you might say, well, hold up. You just said Darius is a Mede and Cyrus is a Persian. So how could he be his grandfather if they're of two different nations? Well, like I said, now also keep in mind, when you're dealing with history, especially secular history, oftentimes you're not going to get one exact answer. You're going to get some historians that say this, you're going to get some historians that say that, but overall, you'll get the picture. You'll get the overall basic understanding of it. All right, now, the historians say, okay, that Astyages, all right, or Darius the Mede, he had a daughter who was called Mandane, all right? And when he had this daughter, now he was a Median king, all right? And he had a dream that, they were basically like vines coming from, the daughter's womb. And one of his magi's interpreted it that his daughter's child would grow up and take over his kingdom. So in fear of that, Astyages, or Darius the Mede, married off his daughter, all right, to a Persian king, whose name was Cambyses the First. Okay, and so Astyages' daughter, all right, Mandane, is now married to a Persian king. And now the reason he married him, Astyages married his daughter to that king, was because that king, Cambyses the First, was known for being calm and, chill and, peaceful type joint. So he's thinking, all right, well, if I marry her off to somebody like that, then that threat, will possibly be eliminated. Okay, but they ended up getting married, and then they had a child who was Cyrus. So if you want to go by lineage, on Cyrus's mother's side, that's how you would get Astyages to be his grandfather, because it was Astyages, his daughter, son. All right, that's Cyrus. So they're linked, but through his mother's side. That's why Cyrus is a Persian, because his father is a Persian, but his mother is a Mede, and her father is a Mede. Okay, so anyway, long story short, they now have Cyrus, and then Astyages has another dream. All right, and his magi tells him, look, that child, he's gonna take your shit. So Astyages sends his general Harpagus. All right, he says, yo, go and kill Cyrus, man. Go kill the boy. All right, and that's similar to the story of Hercules. For those who are familiar, when you were a child and you watched Hercules, the cartoon and so on and so forth. Hades, I believe that was his name, which was Hercules' uncle, all right, basically sent those two little demons, the fat one and the skinny one, and he sent them and told them to go kill Hercules when he was a baby. All right, so he sent them to go kill Hercules, and they went, and they didn't fully get the job done. They thought they did, but he's gonna die anyway, and so they go back to Hades. Oh yeah, we killed him. Oh yeah, he's dead. But then he was actually alive. So it's a similar story onto what happened here with Cyrus. All right. Anyway, Harpagus goes and he's like, look, I'm not gonna kill this baby because that's royal blood. I don't want that on my hands. So he takes Cyrus, the young baby Cyrus, and swaps it out with some low shepherd's son who was a stillborn. All right, and then he brings the stillborn to Astyages and said, hey, look, this guy right here, this is your son. He's dead. See, I did it. Right? He's like, okay, cool. Later on, it comes out that Cyrus is still alive, and the Darius ends up sparing his life and returns him back to his parents. So that's the history of Cyrus and Darius. All right, Darius the Mede, and he basically grows up. Cyrus grows up, and of course, the Lord put the spirit on him to where he grows up to a certain point, and he goes to war. All right, with his Median grandfather, all right, which is Darius the Mede. So he goes over, or Astyages, and takes over his kingdom, and that's how the Persians came up. When you go into Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, in Daniel 7, they're likened onto a bear that raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth. And then in Daniel 8, they're likened onto a ram with 2 horns, but one was higher. The one was higher was the Persians. Okay, and so that was when Cyrus grew up and he took down the Medes. All right, basically took over his grandfather's kingdom, but he didn't kill his grandfather. Okay, so he takes over his grandfather's kingdom, and that begins the conquest, all right, or the growing of the Persians coming into power. And that is where you start to see the downfall of the Babylonians, because Cyrus now has charge over the Medes and the Persians. He took down his grandfather. And then they came and said, all right, now let's take down Babylon. And that's what we read about in Daniel, the 5th chapter, where it tells you in the same night Belshazzar was slain, and the kingdom, and Darius took the kingdom. It was given to him. So Darius, the Mede, was given jurisdiction over that land, all right, or that province of Babylon. So coming back here into Daniel 11 and 1, Daniel is in the time, all right, under the he's in Babylon, but the ruler of Babylon is Darius the Mede, because the ultimate king at the time, Cyrus, had appointed him ruler over Babylon, had basically given it to him. And so when you read into Daniel, you'll notice that he gets thrown in the lion's den under Darius's rule. But then there's another account of him getting thrown into the lion's den again under Cyrus's rule. Okay, and these were two different accounts. Okay, now how do we know that this Darius the Mede, all right, is Astyages? When you go into the book, the scriptures actually tell you. All right, when you go into let's get it real quick, because the scriptures say prove all things. Bel, all right, well, the history of Bel and the dragon. Okay, it says here, history of Bel and the dragon 1:1. And the king Astyages, all right, his name is written right there, Astyages. You can look him up, it'll tell you who he is. It'll give you the story that I just gave you. All right, it says, and King Astyages was gathered to his fathers, he died, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. Okay, so after Cyrus had basically taken down Astyages, or Darius the Mede, he didn't kill him. He gave him Babylon to rule for a while. Now notice in Daniel 5, it says when Darius the Mede took the kingdom, he was 62 years old. He was 62 years old. So he ruled not that long until he died, and then Cyrus just took the whole shit again. Okay? And that's why in the history of Bel and the dragon, the king now at the time is Cyrus. Okay? So dealing with Daniel 11:1, it says, I also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And then it goes into verse 2, all right, which now it says what? And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. Okay, now I'm gonna lightly touch on it, but I'll go more in depth on verse 2, all right, at another time. And I'll actually go into these 3 kings and the 4th king and what they were known for, who they were. Once again, you know the names, okay, Cambyses II, Bardia, Darius, and Xerxes. But who are these people? Who's Cambyses? Who's Bardia? Who's Xerxes? If you just, oh yeah, Cambyses, Bardia, Xerxes, but who are they? You got to know them, So these are the 3 kings that because this is actual history. And you know what this does? It also it proves and validates the scriptures, even though the scriptures don't need it to validate it, but it's there. So now you can read it here, and then you can literally go and look at those kings, all right, in secular history and find out, oh shoot, these are that's them. There were actually 3 kings and this, that, and blah, 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 blah. Now, in verse 2, the reason the 3 kings, all right, or the 4 kings, Cyrus is not included in that. Why is that? Because it says here, I will now show you, or I will show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. So the angel's telling Daniel, this is in the future. This is the kings that are going to come up next. And at the time of Daniel receiving this vision, Cyrus is already the king. So if he was already the king, he could not be a part of those that were now going to come up into power. That's why the 3 kings here start with Cambyses II, which was the son of Cyrus. And then it continues on down. Okay? But we're going to stop at verse 1, just dealing with Darius the Mede. Okay, so now you know who he is. Now, it's important to notice, because when you go into, like, for example, Daniel, the 9th chapter, all right, it can be a little confusing, because in verse 1 of Daniel 9, it says, in the first year of Darius, and one thing to note is Darius is not a name. Darius is a title. It's like having, like saying Pharaoh, or Antiochus. Antiochus is not a name. All right, it's like a title, that's why you have like Antiochus the second, the third. You have Pharaoh this, Pharaoh that, Darius the second, Darius the third. All right. So it says, because they all had their actual names, but they had throne names. All right. So in Daniel 9:1, it says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made, he was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, which is in Babylon. Now, you might get confused, because you'll say, hold on. It says Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, but Ahasuerus was a Persian, because when you go into the book of Esther, the king at the time was who? Ahasuerus, right? and he married Esther, da 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 da. We know the story of that. But he was a Persian. So why is it saying here in Daniel 9, all right, that Darius was the son of Ahasuerus of the seed of the Medes, if Ahasuerus was a Persian, but you know what I'm saying, it's saying that he was of the seed of the Medes. The reason being is because this Ahasuerus that's written of here is not talking about the Persian king that we read about in Esther. Okay, you got to keep in mind that the scriptures, for example, when you read, I believe it's somewhere in the book of Kings and Jeremiah, you'll notice that when it refers to Nebuchadnezzar, certain points it'll actually say Nebuchadnezzar, and certain points it will say Nebuchadrezzar. It will spell his name differently. Okay, so just like the Greeks would the Greeks called these Persian kings, Xerxes, that was the Greek name, Xerxes and Artaxerxes. In the Hebrew, all right, will translate to Ahasuerus, all right. The transliterated version of it will be Ahasuerus, but there were multiple ones. Okay, so here in Daniel 9, when it says the son of Ahasuerus of the seed of the Medes, this Darius here in Daniel 9 and 1 is the same Darius in Daniel 11 and 1. All right, his name is Astyages, and his father's name was Cyaxares. It's just in the Bible here in Daniel 9 and 1, it calls him Ahasuerus. So don't get that confused, because you might, well, if Ahasuerus is a Persian, why is it saying that here he's of the seed of the Medes? All right, it's talking about different people. Just because it says the same Ahasuerus here doesn't mean it's the same person. So don't let that trip you up. Okay, that's just something to point out. All right. So now let me go back. I just want to see if I covered it all. And there's not, like I said, there's not really too much to cover in Daniel 11 and 1. But as we keep going, trust me, the history is a lot. All right, it is a lot. It's a lot of names, dates, places, people. This person here, this person there. They did this, they did that. There's a lot of reading on it. That's why, I broke it up. That's why I'm trying to do it verse by verse. Okay, and Lord willing, I'll do it in video segments. So if you read it and you want to go back, you want to get some more history behind who this person is and this, that, and the third, you can do that. Okay, you can do that. Hey, shalom, those watching, shalom. And you see, this is also part of the reason why they took out the Apocrypha. If you notice, there's certain, like in the book of Esther, for example, there's a portion of the book of Esther that's literally removed from the from the scriptures, and it's in the Apocrypha. But if they try to invalidate the Apocrypha, certain things in the scriptures wouldn't make sense. It says the Lord, basically the whole celebration of Hanukkah. All right, that's where's that at? The dedication, the feast of dedication, would rededicate the temple. That's during the time of the Maccabees, but you read about that in the Apocrypha. But the Lord kept that. So how come Yahushua kept that? You don't hear about it anywhere in the regular scriptures, but it's in the Apocrypha. So how is the Apocrypha invalid, but the Lord is keeping something that's written of in there? And there's a lot of key information in the Apocrypha that they try to hide. It tells you how the native, so-called Native Americans got to America. It tells you who they are. It talks about Alexander, who he was. So there's a lot of information in there that they try to hide, because it would disrupt their lies that they're trying to tell. Okay, they know the truth. That's why they twist it up. The lies they tell is just twisted up truth. They know the truth, so they know what to teach you and what not to teach you. If you're going to tell a lie, especially a lie on the magnitude that these devils and these elites do, they need to know the truth so they can hide the truth, so they can mislead you. If I don't want you to go into a certain place, I need to know where that place is at so I can make sure you don't go there. That is their job. So they'll set up false teachers, false preachers. They'll even set up churches. I bet, some of these pastors in these churches are actually Satanists. Legit, full-blown Satanists that are sent to come out as pastors because you know what? They know that you're going to go to the church seeking the truth. All right, as a matter of fact, Yeah, so that was it on Daniel 11:1. We're going real quick. I'm gonna get a precept in Romans. All right. 11 verse 7. You see it says here, what then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Okay, they were blinded, and that's why the Lord allows these devils to do these kinds of things. 501c3 charter, all this, that, and the third. There are actual Satanists who are posing as pastors in these churches. They do that because they know that Jake is gonna come here seeking something. But if we're on the side of the enemy and we've infiltrated wherever we want to infiltrate, that's good for us, because now we know what questions to shut down. We know what vibration to push in the church. We know where to take these conversations. We know what scriptures to touch on and not to touch on. You know, we know all these things, all right, because they're Satanists, so they know what to bring out, what not to bring out. They know how to sway you from the right path and bring you into the wrong path. All right, that's how this devil moves. All right, he's a serpent. Okay, they won't go into these prophecies and break it down, and this is this, and this is the the mark of the beast, or this means this, or this book. They're not gonna give you that. They're not going. Man, half of these pastors they can't even break down 25% of the scriptures. All right, they can't, keyword, break down 25% of the scriptures. Maybe a few might quote something here and there, but they can't explain it. They can't link it up with a precept. They can't tell you this means this. The reason is when you go here, because they don't. Some of them don't even study, man. The majority of them don't study. You know why? Because they know you don't study. So they know when you come up into this church, you're not gonna ask me any sensible question that I gotta study to answer you. I'm just gonna tell you what I tell you every week, and you're gonna keep giving me your money, and I'm gonna stay rich. Being a pastor nowadays is not about teaching people. It's not about. It's a career. It's a profession. It's about how to make money. That's how they've set it up. All right, which shows you how wicked this place is, man. But anyway, that was pretty much it on this. All right, I just wanted to put that out there. Lord's will. If the spirit permits, I'll come back and I'll go into it. All right, verse by verse. And it's gonna be an in-depth, so you're gonna, I'm gonna touch on, all right, I'm gonna touch on these different themes and so on and so forth, and bring up, Lord willing, when I do the video format, I actually bring up the names and read a little bit about it to give you a little bit of information on it, But it's all it's all good to know. Okay, it's good to know for you to understand. The scriptures talk about, with all I get understanding. Don't be a parrot and don't regurgitate. Understand whatever it is you're reading, man. It's important to understand it. Okay, it won't make sense to you unless you understand it. And sometimes understanding doesn't come overnight. It takes being studious. You gotta go over it again and again and again. Hey, Apostle Tahar always says that. He says, hey, when High Priest Ariah, and he would always go over the same breakdowns again and again and again and again. To where you can know it in your sleep. All right, and then you perfect it, and then you move on, and then you learn more, and then you perfect it, and you move on, and you learn more. Okay, that's how you become a master, all right, of the truth. And what is our job to know? It's our business to know this, man, because who else is going to do it? You know what I'm saying? Who else is going to do it? All right, so yeah, that was pretty much it. All right, I don't really need to bring out any more, but you get the point. So hey, Lord's willing, this is edifying and will be edifying. All right, and you could tune in and be edified. That's right. Yahweh is my power. Israel. They teach that prosperity doctrine. You ever notice you go into church, you don't get edified. There's a difference. You don't get edified. Edified, you feel that satisfaction. Your brain feels full. The same way you eat actual food, and you're like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm full. Like, now I need to digest this, and I have something to digest and draw nutrients from, and and be good. All right, that's how you gotta feel spiritually when you watch these videos or when you study. You want to feel that, like, you fed your brain, and your brain is like, like I have things that I can go and digest now. I can go over it again, and you digest it through the studying. I'm breaking it down and going over it again and again and again. And now, I've digested it, and I've drawn the good information from it that I need, You know, now I'm back for more. That is edification. That's our job, you know, to make sure that we give you quality information, you know, information that you can retain, that you need to, you know, you actually got to understand, you know, because if you're eating junk food, every 2 seconds you're gonna be hungry. Your body's not getting any nutrients that it needs to, you know, really, it needs to flourish. It's not, you know, and it's the same thing with these videos. All right, you eat physically, you eat spiritually. So you gotta, you know, number one, you gotta know who you eat from, where you eating from, you know, and you gotta eat the correct food. All right, so that's pretty much it. Lord willing, this was edifying unto the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.